Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for another video. We got a good one preparing to you today. What we're going to be doing is we'll be looking at our Week 9 NFL matchups. We're going to go over every single game, break them down, and try to predict the outcome. Who's going to win, who's going to lose, and what the final score will be. Week 8 is wrapping up right now, but it's never too early to start looking at the next week matchups. Week 8, things got back to the way they've been the whole season. Crazy upsets, a lot of big games coming up, a lot of injuries. Let's go ahead and get started. Make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe. If you have any comments about any of these games or anything else, please drop them below and I will make sure to respond. Every week we go over every single NFL game. We also do the same thing for every college football game as well. We break down the money lines, the spreads, and the over-unders. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed so you can follow along with us. If you are a football fan, if you are a sports fan, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Like I said, this is our early Week 9 best bets. We're going to predict all these matchups. The very first one we have coming up is going to be our Thursday game. Our prime game. We have the 6-2 Houston Texans versus the 2-6 New York Jets. Right now, this game is going to be at 8:15. We have the Texans coming in. They are actually the underdogs, but they have a 50.8% chance to win this game. The Jets are 1-point favorites here. The over-under is 43.5. When you're looking at the Texans, obviously, they're coming off of a win. The Jets coming off of a loss. The Jets need this win really bad. They're riding a really long losing streak. They cannot possibly drop to 2-7. They put too much into this team. Rodgers, trading for Adams. They have to get the offense going. They have to get over 20 points per game. They have a solid defense, but their defense is on the field the entire game. They need first downs. They need to suck up some clock with that offense. We know the Texans can score. They have Stroud. He's closing in on 2,000 yards, 11 touchdowns, 4 picks. They average 23.5 points a game. They throw for 232.5. They run for 118.9. And their defense is giving up 22.4 points a game. For the Jets, they come in, they have Rodgers. He's having a decent season so far, closing in on 1,900 yards, 12 touchdowns, 7 picks. Their offense, like I said, they're only averaging 18.8 points a game. They need to get that number up because they leave the defense on the field way too long. They're throwing for 224.5, but they're only running for 86.1. That's one of the main issues there. When you don't have a run game, you can't suck up clock. They need to be able to run the ball better. The offensive line has to step up here, open up some holes. When the pass game does that, that's going to open up the run game, which is then going to open up that play action. And their defense only giving up 21.3 points a game. Looking at the playmakers for Houston, they have Stroud, they have Mixon, Collins, Diggs. Collins could potentially be back this game. They did say Week 9 to Week 10. If he comes back, obviously that's a massive help for the Texans. And for the Jets, they have Rodgers, they have Breece Hall, they have Wilson, Lazard. Now they have Devontae Adams, who's an experienced veteran for those third down situations. The Jets are the 1-point favorites here. I could see them winning this game. They have the defense, they're at home, and they're due for a win. But I have to go with the Texans getting the upset here. I have the Texans winning this one 24-20, the spread not being covered, and we're going with the over. In the next matchup we'll be looking at, we're now moving on to our Sunday games on November 3rd. We have the 2-5 Miami Dolphins. They finally got to a back. They almost beat the Cardinals, but they didn't end up losing that one at the last second on a field goal. They'll be playing the 6-2 Buffalo Bills, who are leading the division right now. The Bills are the team that knocked Tua out. They are rolling right now. They have a top 10 offense. They have a top 10 defense. Right now the Bills come in here. They are the favorites. This game's at 1 p.m. on CBS. The Bills are 6-point favorites. The over-under is 48.5. Bills have a 72.1% chance to win this game. Dolphins need a win really bad. Obviously, things kind of set them behind once they lost Tua for 4 or 5 total games. They were not able to move the ball at all consistently down the field. They had a top 5 offense last season. When they lost Tua this year, that dropped them down to the worst offense in the NFL. To Hill, Waddle, Bears, no one was able to pick up any yardage. They were finally able to move the ball this past weekend. Things finally got back to normal. The defense was actually playing pretty solid while Tua was out, but once they played the Cardinals, they gave up a lot of points. They lost 28-27. The defense has to step up because now the offense should be back on track. Tua should be getting better every single week and knocking the rust off. But unfortunately for him, the Bills have a really good defense. They're going to be aggressive. They're going to get hits on him. So the question is, how does Tua play? Can he stay healthy? What version of Tua do we get? Right now, the Dolphins come in. They're averaging 13.9. They throw for 186.3. They run for 131.7. Their defense giving up 22.4 points a game. And for the Bills, they're averaging, obviously, they have Josh Allen, who finally threw his first pick of the season in Week 8. He's having a great season so far. They're not asking too much of him this season. He's closing in on 1,800 yards, 14 touchdowns, 1 pick. They have a top 5 offense. They're averaging 28.8 points a game, throwing for 214.3, running for 122.3. Solid defense, only giving up 18.3 points a game. They're going to get a lot of pressure on Tua. How does the Dolphins offensive line hold up? They don't have a great line, so we're going to see a lot of pressure on Tua. How does McDaniel change the play calling to try to protect Tua? Does that hold the Dolphins offense back? Right now, the Dolphins, they have Tua, they have Achin, they have Mostert, Hill, Waddle, a great offensive roster. It's just we need to make sure Tua can stay upright. And for the Bills, they have Josh Allen, they have James Cook, and they have Shakir, Coleman, and now they have Cooper coming in, the experienced veteran that they needed for that young wide receiver core. I have the Bills winning this one, winning it 28-23. I do not have them covering the spread. I think the Dolphins will be able to move the ball, just not enough, and we're going with the over. In the next matchup we're looking at 1 p.m. on Fox, we have the 3-4 Dallas Cowboys coming off that loss to San Francisco. We did have them losing. We're seeing a lot of consistent issues on the Cowboys. They have a lot of things they need to fix. It's not just any one thing. They need a running back. They need offensive line help. They need wide receiver help outside of CeeDee Lamb, and their entire defense is just really bad this season. They'll be playing the 5-3 Atlanta Falcons coming off of a win. Right now, the Falcons are 2.5-point favorites. The over in here is 49.5, and the Falcons have a 57.2% chance to win this game. This is going to be a fun game because I could easily see this game turning into a shootout. The Cowboys need this win. They're 3-4. They're under 500. They have to at least get back to 500. And they have nothing to lose here. They need to throw everything they have into every single game going forward. They need to rattle off wins. There's going to be a lot of heat. Jerry Jones is probably going to be catching a lot of slack. He is the GM. Dak is catching slack. Mike McCarthy, if you don't have a winning record this season, if you don't make the playoffs, you're probably getting canned once the season ends. You need a win bad here. Right now, the Cowboys are led by Dak Prescott, closing in on 1,900 yards, 10 touchdowns, and 8 picks. That's not a good season so far, but obviously they have a lot of issues, like I was saying. They're averaging 21.4. They're throwing for 256, so one of the highest passing offenses, but obviously that's not resulting in points. They're not able to punch it in once they get down to the red zone. They're only running for 74.1 yards per game. One of the worst rushing attacks in the NFL. The Cowboys' strength used to be their offensive line, their running game, their defense. All three of those things are now their weakness. They're giving up 28.3 points a game. That's a bottom 3 defense in the NFL. They had a top 5 defense last season. Now they're bottom 3. They're getting torched up and down the field, giving up 218 passing yards per game, giving up 154.6 rushing yards per game. They just basically can't do anything right now. For the Falcons, they have Kirk Cousins closing in on 2,200 yards, 14 touchdowns, 7 picks. They're averaging 24.3 points a game, throwing for 250.9, running for 120.8, and their defense is giving up 24.4. Falcons have a stacked offensive roster. They can beat you running the ball. They can beat you throwing the ball. For the Cowboys, they have Dak Prescott. They have Dowdle, who's their leading rusher. He only has 246 yards. He's basically averaging 30 rushing yards per game. That's not going to cut it. That's the leading rusher for the Dallas Cowboys. Falcons, they have Cousins. They have Bijan Robinson. They have Algiers. They have London, Mooney, Pitts. Multiple weapons at quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. As I said, I could see this game turning into a shootout. Shootout means whoever has the ball last could potentially win it. But I have the Falcons pulling it off, winning this one 28-24, covering the spread, and we're going with the over. And the next game we're looking at is going to be At 1 p.m. on Fox, we have the 2-6 Las Vegas Raiders riding a really long losing streak right now. They just can't do anything right. They don't play solid offense. They don't play good defense. They'll be playing the 3-5 Cincinnati Bengals coming off of a loss. They obviously need this win bad. They need to start working their way back to 500. Started out the season 1-4, so they need to slowly chip away at that, get themselves back to 500. Right now, the Bengals are the favorites, pretty big favorites here, 7.5-point favorite. The over-under is 45.5, and the Bengals have a 64.9% chance to win this game. The Raiders have been playing quarterback carousel throughout the season. They've been starting Minshew. They've been starting O'Connell. Minshew's the better option right now. He throws a lot of picks, but at least he can move the ball down the field. He's closing in on 1,400 yards, 6 touchdowns, 8 picks. They're averaging 18 points a game. They're giving up 26.3 points a game. They obviously have a lot of things they need to work on, especially turnovers, and they're only running for 79 yards per game. They have no running game. That's obviously going to affect the passing game when you can't put the ball on the ground. For the Bengals, they have Joe Burrow having a great season so far, closing in on 2,000 yards, 15 touchdowns, 3 picks. They're averaging 24.4 points a game, throwing for 235.5, running for 89.8. It's the defense that's kept them out of a lot of these games. They have a lot of close one-possession losses. They are giving up 25.4 points a game. But that's probably due to the fact that they also don't have a running game. So the defense is on the field a lot because the offense isn't able to move the ball down the field and suck up a lot of time during these games. For the Raiders, they have Minshew, they have Madison, Brock Bowers having a great season so far, one of the better rookie seasons. And then for the Bengals, they have a stacked wide receiver core, a little banged up, but right now they have Burrow, they have Brown, they have Jamar Chase, they have Higgins. Everyone should be fully healthy for this coming game. They should be able to move the ball on the Raiders. I have the Bengals winning this one 27-17. I have them covering the spread, but I'm going with the under. And the next game we're looking at 1 p.m. on CBS, the 4-3 LA Chargers versus the 2-6 Cleveland Browns. Chargers coming off of a win. We had them winning that one. Browns coming off of a win. Solid performance from the Browns offense. Obviously, they lost Deshaun Watson for the season. That probably wasn't a bad thing. He was playing awful. He's been holding this team back the whole season. Could not accurately throw the ball past 5 yards. Jameis Winston actually had a really good game. They were able to vertically push the ball down the field for once. Right now, though, the Chargers and their defense are the favorites here. They're 2.5-point favorites. The over-under is 40.5. But the Browns are the fan favorite to win this game with a 52.9% chance to win this game. Looking at the matchup here, obviously the Chargers, they have Herbert, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. He's had a very conservative season so far. They haven't needed much from him because their defense and their run game has been working so well. But this past weekend, he pushed the ball down the field, and they needed him to get some scores. And you know, if you need 350, he can get you 350. Right now, he's closing in on 1,500 yards, 8 picks, and only 1 interception through the first 8 weeks. They're averaging 18.9 points a game, throwing for 194, running for 117.1. But it's that defense, a top 5, top 3 defense, technically, only giving up 13 points a game. It's hard to score on the Chargers. Browns have a great offensive performance this past weekend. That's not necessarily going to carry over versus the Chargers. They're going to get after you. They're going to hit the quarterback. They're going to hit him often. They're going to get a lot of pressure. Hopefully those pressures for them would result in turnovers from Jameis Winston. Right now, the Browns, they had Jameis Winston closing in on 500 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 picks. Like I said, he lit it up this past weekend. Props to the Browns. Their team is a lot better than that 2-6 record. You don't want to sleep on them. What was holding them back was Watson. He's now gone. The Browns average 17.3 points a game. They throw for 179.8. They run for 92.5. Their defense giving up 23.3 points a game, but they actually have a top 10 defense talent-wise. It's just they were on the field the entire game because their offense was never able to consistently move the ball. They have Watson, they have Ford, they have Judy. Obviously, they did trade Cooper. I have the Chargers and their defense pulling out a close one-possession loss, winning this one 20-17. I have them covering the spread, but I'm going with the under. Then at 1 p.m. on Fox, we have the 2-6 New England Patriots versus the 1-6 Tennessee Titans. Their sole win was versus the Jags, but the Titans actually come into this game as the favorites. 3-point favorites. The over-under is 42.5. For the Patriots, obviously they've played a little better recently. They were riding a really long losing streak. Drake May, he got concussed, but they've been moving the ball a lot better on him. We don't know if he'll be able to play this week. He probably will. If not, they'll be rolling with Jacoby Brissett. But for the Patriots, Drake May's closing in on 600 yards, 5 touchdowns, 2 picks. They're only averaging 15.5 points a game. They're throwing for 149.9. They're running the ball for 111. Their defense has been challenged, but it's getting wore out every game. They're giving up 24.6 points a game. For Tennessee, whether it's Will Levis, whether it's Mason Rudolph, they have issues moving the ball down the field. But Mason Rudolph probably gives you the better chance to win this game. Right now, the Titans are averaging 17.1. They're throwing for 161.9. They're running for 119.7. But their defense is bottom 5 in the NFL, giving up 28 points a game. For the Patriots, they have Brissett, they have Jake May. Stevenson's having a solid season running the ball, but someone else has to step up. There's too much pressure on Stevenson. There's too much pressure on Hunter Henry. They need another third weapon. For the Titans, they have Levis, they have Mason, they have Pollard, and they have Calvin Ridley. As of right now, this is probably going to be a low-scoring game. It's probably going to be a really sloppy game. Could come down to whoever has a fourth-quarter turnover. I have the Patriots closing out, winning a really close one here, getting another win, winning this one 20-17. I do not have that spread being covered, and we'll be going with the under here. And then on Fox at 1 p.m., you have the 6-2 Washington Commanders. What a crazy game that was for Week 8. They were underdogs in that game. Jaden Daniels came back from his injury, played the game, and they won on a 70-yard Hail Mary. They'll be playing the 2-5 New York Giants. This is an early prediction video for Week 9. So our Monday night game hasn't happened as of right now. Giants will be playing the Steelers. Right now for this game, Washington is the favorite, 3.5-point favorites. The over-under here is 41.5, and the Commanders in this game have a 64.9% chance to win the game. And obviously the Commanders are led by Rookie of the Year, Jaden Daniels, closing in on 1,800 yards, 7 touchdowns, 2 picks, and that's not even accounting for his rushing yards. This guy's lighting it up, throwing the ball, running the ball. The Giants, they're going to be led by, it's probably going to be Daniel Jones. As of right now, we don't fully know. Really doesn't matter who they roll out at the quarterback position. They're not able to move the ball. Right now, Daniel Jones is the leading passer, closing in on 1,500 yards, 6 touchdowns, 4 picks. Turnovers, fumbles have been a massive problem for the Giants. Commanders have a top 5 offense, they're averaging 29.5 points a game, throwing for 230.5, running for 165.8. And their defense has been playing really good for the last 4 to 5 weeks. They're only giving up 20.9 points a game. For the Giants, they have a pretty good defense. It's the offense where they're lacking, especially in the turnover field. They're only averaging 14.1 points a game, throwing for 189.1, running for 101.6, and their defense giving up 21.3 points a game. But their defense can keep them in a lot of games. They have a lot of one-possession loss games. For Washington, they have Jaden Daniels, they have Brian Robinson Jr., they have Terry, and for the Giants, they have Jones, Singletary, Neighbors. Neighbors has missed a lot of time due to concussions, but he is a legitimate wide receiver number 1. They just need to draft or sign a quarterback who can consistently move the ball, get first downs, and this can be a competitive team, but I have to go with Washington to win this one. I have them winning it 27-20. I have them covering the spread, and we're going with the over. And then at 1 p.m. on CBS, we have the 2-6 New Orleans Saints. They started out the season 2-0. Now they're riding a 6-game losing streak. They've been really banged up. They've been rolling with Spencer Rattler and company at the quarterback position. Derek Carr may be fully healthy for this game. They'll be playing the 1-7 Carolina Panthers. Right now, the Saints are a 7-point favorite. The over-under is 41.5, and the Saints have a 66.9% chance to win this game. If they get Carr back, that's going to be a massive jolt for the offense. He wasn't playing great when he left, but obviously they were able to move the ball a lot more. Carr's closing in on 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns, 4 picks. He is a veteran quarterback, should be able to move the ball on the Panthers. Panthers were the worst team in the NFL last season. They're the worst team in the NFL this season. Andy Dalton, he was banged up, missed his Week 8 performance, so they went with Bryce Young. As of right now, Dalton should be back for the Week 9 game. He's closing in on 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns, 6 picks. For New Orleans, they don't have a bad roster at all. It's been consistent play on both sides of the ball. Can they get the team on the same page at the same time? Right now, they're averaging 23.1, throwing for 203-point run, running for 116.4. Their defense has taken a massive step back after the first 3 weeks, giving up 25.8 points per game. They are a lot better than that. It's just turnovers and sloppy play that has caused them to give up a lot of points. For the Panthers, they're averaging 15.5. They throw for 177.9. They run for 104. But that defense is giving up 33.9 points a game. Worst defense in the NFL. They're giving up 34 points per game. That's a bad combo with the fact that they're only averaging 15.5 points a game. For the Saints, they have Carr. They have Kamara having a great season so far, and they have Olave. And for the Panthers, they have Dalton. They have Hubbard, who's actually having a really good season so far, but he's having to completely carry this team. He's their primary weapon, and they have Deontay Johnson. I have the Saints pulling this one out, winning a close game, 23-17. I do not have them covering the spread, and I'm going with the under. And then on CBS at 1 p.m., we have the 5-3 Denver Broncos coming off a win versus the 5-3 Baltimore Ravens coming off of a really close loss, but a game that they should have won, but they had a lot of sloppy play. Right now, Ravens are a massive, massive favorite here. 9-point favorites versus a top 5 defense. The over-under is 44.5, and the Ravens have a 76.1% chance to win this game. I hate these massive spreads, especially versus a defense that's playing as well as the Broncos. For the Broncos, they have Bo Nix. He's closing in on 1,600 yards. He has 8 touchdowns, 5 picks. But props to him, props to Sean Payton. They started out the season with some of the worst 2 performances in week 1 and week 2. They've completely rounded things out. They're playing a lot better on the offensive side. They've gone 5-1 since then. They're staying within Bo Nix's strengths. Short, dink and dunk passing, rolling the pocket, moving the ball slowly down the field, relying on your defense to win you games. They're averaging 21.6 points a game, throwing for 185.9, running for 121.4. But it's that defense only giving up 15 points a game. That's a top 5 defense. That's keeping them in all of these games, even the ones they've dropped, 1-possession games. For the Ravens, one of the best offenses in the NFL. Yes, they lost this past weekend, but they probably have the hottest overall roster in all of football, led by Lamar Jackson, closing in on 2,100 yards, 17 touchdowns, only 2 picks. He's going after his 3rd MVP. Right now, Baltimore, they have their sights on the playoffs. They have their sights on a potential Super Bowl this season. They're averaging 30.3 points a game, a top 3 offense. They're throwing for 252.1, running for 200 yards per game, the best rushing attack in the NFL. Last season, they had the number 1 rushing team in the country. This season, the number 1 rushing team, they added Derrick Henry to that. They're running the ball. They have speed. They have physicality. But it's their defense, giving up 26.1 points a game. That's their major weakness, especially the secondary. They probably have the worst secondary in the NFL, giving up 291.4 passing yards per game. Anybody can throw on the Ravens. That's not a good mixture, but you can't run on them. They're only giving up 69.9 yards on the ground. The number 1 rush defense, but the worst pass defense. Right now, Denver, they have Bo Nix, they have Williams, they have Sutton, and for Baltimore, they have Lamar Jackson, they have Derrick Henry closing in on 1,000 yards on the ground. By week 9, they have Zay Flowers, they have Andrews, likely multiple weapons at quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. I have Baltimore winning this one, 27-20. I do not have them covering the spread, but we will be going with the over. And then at 4:05 p.m. on CBS, we have the 2-6 Jacksonville Jaguars, who dropped a really close one versus the Packers, but they almost won that game. They'll be playing the 5-2 Philadelphia Eagles, who we had winning this past weekend. They are rolling right now. We had them upsetting the Bengals. Right now, the Eagles are the favorites. 7-point favorites. Over under here is 47.5. And the Eagles have a 67.1% chance to win this game. They're playing really good on both sides of the ball. Their issue that's been plaguing them since the second half of last season has been turnovers on offense. They've been able to cut down those turnovers. Can they keep that streak going? And their defense has been playing really good for the last 4 to 5 games. Right now, the Jags are led by Trevor Lawrence, who's closing in on 1,900 yards. He has 11 touchdowns, 4 picks. And for the Eagles, they have Hurts, who hasn't been doing too much this season. Just take what the defense gives you. Let your defense keep the game close, and you can get a 1-possession win. He's closing in on 1,600 yards, 8 touchdowns, 4 picks. For Jacksonville, they're averaging 21.5 points a game. They're actually getting a lot better on the offensive side so far this season, but their defense has been consistently really bad. They're throwing for 213.8. They're running for 120.1. They're giving up 28 points a game, a bottom 5 defense, 271.1 passing yards per game. Then, just like the Ravens, their massive issue is their defense and their secondary. They're not getting quarterback pressures right now. For the Eagles, they're averaging 24.1 points a game, throwing for 201.3, running for 165.9, one of the best rushing teams in the NFL, and they're only giving up 18.9 points a game. That defense is keeping them in all of these games. The Jags, they have Trevor Lawrence, they have Bigsby, they have Brian Thomas Jr., they have Kirk. They actually have a pretty decent young wide receiver core. And for the Eagles, they have Hurts. Saquon Barkley is closing in on 800 yards on the ground. They have A.J. Brown. They have Devontae Smith, one of the better wide receiver cores. I have the Eagles winning this one, 28-21. So as of right now, that's a push. But that spread is probably going to change by the time that we get to game time. And I do have them just slightly going over. And then at 4:05 p.m. on CBS, we have the 4-3 Chicago Bears coming off of that upset loss when they gave up the Hail Mary at the very end. That was a crazy game. They'll be playing the 4-4 Arizona Cardinals, who are coming off of that close win versus the Dolphins. Right now, the Cardinals are the favorites here. They're 1-point favorites. The over-under is 44.5, but the Bears have a 51.6% chance to win this game. So for the Bears, Caleb Williams has been playing a lot better. His week 1 performance, he only had 93 yards. He consistently got better throughout the season. The main cause of that was we got a better performance out of the offensive line, buying him some more time to find those targets down the field. Right now he's closing in on 1,500 yards, 9 touchdowns, 5 picks. For Kyler Murray, I said this past weekend, he's very Jekyll Hyde. He has a great game, he has a bad game. 2 weeks ago, he had a bad game. He was due for a big game, and that's what he had versus the Dolphins. But now he's probably due for a pretty sloppy game. Right now, the Bears, they have a really good defense. They have a top 10 defense, physical defense. They're going to try to force the Cardinals into some mistakes, getting some turnovers. The Bears average 23.3 points a game. They pass for 184.4. They run for 117.9. And their defense only giving up 17 points a game. They're going to get hits on the Cardinals. Are the Cardinals able to consistently move the ball on the Bears defense? That's going to be the big question here. For them, they have Kyler Murray closing in on 1,700 yards, 11 touchdowns, and only 3 picks so far. They're averaging 22.3 points a game. They're throwing for 196.8, running for 141.8. Very balanced, consistent offense, and they're giving up 25.6 points a game. 235.6 passing yards per game. The issue for the Cardinals is they don't generate a consistent pass rush. So Caleb Williams, who's also mobile, is going to have a lot of time to sit back there, find his targets, and pick the Cardinals apart. They have Williams, they have Swift, they have Moore, they have Odunze, they have a good wide receiver core, and they have a quarterback who's playing really good right now. For Arizona, they have Murray, they have James Conner, they have Terry, they have Marvin Harrison Jr. If we get a fully healthy Marvin Harrison Jr., he's probably going to have a pretty decent game here. He is a security blanket, but the Bears, to me, and their defense should be able to pull the upset here. I have the Bears winning this one 24-20, the spread not being covered, and we're just slightly going with the under. And to me, what's the game of the weekend at 4:25 p.m. on Fox? The 6-1 Detroit Lions, who are probably the hottest team in the NFL right now on both sides of the ball. They'll be playing the 6-2 Green Bay Packers, who are one of the hottest teams also right now, playing good also on both sides of the ball. This game is going to be close. This game could potentially turn into an easy shootout. Right now, the Lions are 4-point favorites. The over-under is 48.5. There's going to be some points scored here. The Lions have a 51.9% chance to win this game. This game is practically a 50-50. Could go either way. Could come down to whoever has the ball last, or whoever turns the ball over in the fourth quarter could end up losing this game. Right now, the Lions are led by Goff. Yeah, he had a sloppy first 2 games. Since then, he's been playing clean. He's been playing consistent, picking up right where he left off last season. He's closing in on 1,700 yards, 13 touchdowns, 4 picks. Jordan Love, he missed 2 to 3 games, and yet still he's closing in on 1,600 yards, 15 touchdowns, 9 picks. For Detroit, they average 33.4 points a game. That's the number 1 offense in the NFL. They're throwing for 228.4, running for 156.7. Very balanced, and they have a top 10 defense giving up 19.1 points a game. This is a top 5 overall roster, if not the best roster in all of football right now. They want to get back to the playoffs. They want to pick up where they left off last season. This is a Super Bowl caliber team. Right now, the Packers, they're right there, right behind them. They're averaging 27 points a game, throwing for 231.1, running for 156.9. Solid defensive play, giving up 21.3 points per game. For the Lions, they have Goff, they have Gibbs, they have Montgomery, they have St. Brown. Multiple weapons, multiple ways they can beat you. Passing, running, they can beat you on defense. For the Packers, they have Jordan Love closing in on 600 yards. They have Josh Jacobs closing in on 700 yards, and they have Reed closing in on 600 yards. This game's going to be close no matter what. I have the Lions ultimately pulling this one out, winning this one 30-27, not covering the spread, and we're going with the over. But this is one of those games you'll want to watch. It's going to be close. I don't want to go anywhere near this game because I can see the Packers also winning it by the same score, but it's going to be a really fun one for us. And then at 4:25 p.m. on Fox, we have the 3-4 LA Rams. They showed what they're capable when they have a fully healthy roster. They got Cup back. They got Nakua back. They have Williams, Stafford. They are now able to consistently move the ball down the field, which makes them a dangerous upset team. They'll be playing the 4-4 Seattle Seahawks. You also don't want to sleep on them because when their offense is on, they can move the ball on anyone. Right now, the Seahawks are slight favorites here, 1.5-point favorites. The over-under is 48.5, and the Seahawks have a very slight, practically a 50-50 game. They have a 50.2% chance to win this game. Looking at the Rams, they have Stafford, who's a completely different quarterback. He's an experienced veteran quarterback, and when he has those guys that he can rely on, they can move the ball. He's closing in on 1,700 yards, 7 touchdowns, 5 picks. Geno Smith closing in on 2,200 yards, one of the highest passing teams in the NFL. He has 8 touchdowns, 7 picks. For the Rams, they're averaging 20.6 points a game, but a lot of that was without their star players. They're throwing for 222.3, they're running for 101.3, and their defense is giving up 24.9 points a game. Seattle, they're averaging 23.8, throwing for 262.1. They are definitely moving the ball through the air, but they're only running for 89.3 yards a game. Their defense is giving up 24.4 points a game. I think this is going to be a really close one. Seahawks are favorites, started out the season 3-0, dropped 3 straight, then they won 1, dropped 1. They want to stay above 500, so they want to win this game. But the Rams also want to win this game. They want to get back to 500, which completely changes the outcome for the season. They were talking about tearing this team up, trading everyone. But if they get back to 500, that completely changes the trajectory of the season. They have Stafford, Williams, Atwell, Kupp, Nakua. They're dangerous when they're healthy. For Seattle, they have Smith. They have Kenneth Walker III, and they have DK Metcalf. I actually have the Rams pulling the upset here. I have them winning this one 28-24. This game is a shootout. The spread is not covered. We're going with the over. And our second to last game, but the final Sunday night game at 8:20 p.m. on NBC. The 4-4 Colts versus the 5-2 Minnesota Vikings. Colts dropped this past weekend. We have them losing that one. The Vikings, they've dropped 2 straight. They're probably due for a win. They're massive favorites here. 7-point favorites. The over-under is 45.5, and they have a 60.9% chance to win this game. We need to see a little more consistent play from them. They won 5 straight, so they were due to lose some. But now that they've dropped 2, they're probably due to get the win, and they come into this game as heavy favorites. That's a pretty massive spread for an NFL game. For the Colts, they have Anthony Richardson closing in on 1,000 yards, 4 touchdowns, 7 picks. Just sloppy play from him. I've never been high on Richardson since he played at UF. I think Joe Flacco gives you, honestly, the better chance to win this game because he has the arm. He can vertically push the ball down the field, which will open this offense up. And the Vikings, they have Sam Darnold closing in on 1,700 yards, 14 touchdowns, 5 picks. The Colts, they're averaging 21.9 points a game, throwing for 198, running for 128. In solid defensive play the last few weeks, giving up 21.5 points a game. For Minnesota, one of the better offenses, one of the better defenses. If they have a top 5 offense, they have a top 5 defense. They're giving up, well, they average 26.9 points a game. They throw for 213.6. They run for 111.4. And their defense is only giving up 19.6 points a game. What makes the difference here is they only give up 83.9 yards on the ground. They're going to make it difficult for the Colts to run the ball. The Colts want to establish the run game. They have Jonathan Taylor. they have Anthony Richardson, who's a mobile quarterback. If you shut down the run game, bottle him up, he's not accurate enough to beat you through the passing game. For the Colts, they have Richardson, they have Jonathan Taylor, they have Pierce, and for Minnesota, they have Darnold, they have Aaron Jones, and they have Justin Jefferson, one of the best, if not the best, wide receiver in the NFL. I have the Vikings ending their 2-game losing streak, winning this one 27-28. I have them covering the spread, just slightly, barely coming in at the under. And our final game of the week is our Monday night game at 8:15 on ESPN. We have the 4-4 Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the 7-0 undefeated Super Bowl champs, the Kansas City Chiefs. I feel so bad for the Bucs. They lost Evans. They lost Godwin for the season. I don't think Evans is coming back to the end of November. Massive veteran experience loss in the wide receiver room, which really stinks for Baker Mayfield because he was leading the NFL in passing. They were throwing on everyone. Right now, the Bucs come in here as heavy underdogs. Kansas City, 9-point favorites. Over-under is 44.5, and Kansas City has a 62.6% chance to win this game. The Colts, Baker Mayfield still having a great season so far. He has 2,200 passing yards, 21 touchdowns, still leads the NFL in touchdowns, 9 picks. Kansas City, Patrick Mahomes, probably having his worst season of his career so far, closing in on 1,700 yards. He has 8 touchdowns, 9 picks. Really sloppy play from the Kansas City offense. However, the defense is playing at a Super Bowl caliber level. They're still getting points because the defense is generating turnovers, giving them short fields. For Tampa Bay, one of the best offenses, the top 3 offense. They're averaging 29.4 points a game. They're throwing for 258.5, running for 131. Their defense is giving up 26.4 points a game, but they lost Godwin. They lost Evans. They were still able to move the ball versus the Falcons, but the Chiefs defense is going to make it really hard for them to get points without their 2 primary weapons. And for Kansas City, they're averaging 24.7, throwing for 225.9, running for 122.1. They've been banged up the whole season, but they're only giving up 17.6 points a game, only 82.3 yards on the ground. They have a great defensive line. They're going to get pressure on Baker Mayfield, and he no longer has his third down security blankets. So who else is going to step up to help with that wide receiver room? Tampa Bay, they have Baker Mayfield. They have Irving. But they have a massively depleted wide receiver core. For Kansas City, they have Patrick Mahomes, they have Hunt, and they have Travis Kelce. They've been banged up with Rice and Pacheco. Worthy should be playing this game. The Kansas City offense, you don't want to sleep on them because they're veterans. If they need to turn it on, they're more than capable of doing so. I have Kansas City winning a lower scoring game, winning it 23-16. I do not have them covering the spread, and I'm going with the under. So that's our breakdown. That's our early predictions and our best bets for Week 9 of the 2024 NFL football season. Make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe. If you have any comments on these games or anything else, drop them below and I will respond. Thank you.